Imagine finding out the billionaire you secretly married is about to propose to another woman, live on TV. That's Sarah Miller's reality. By day, she's just a shopkeeper. By night, the hidden wife of Nelson Ashford, one of Lagos's richest men. But when his glamorous engagement is announced to the world, Sarah faces a deadly choice: stay silent and disappear, or step out of the shadows and destroy everything. Because in Lagos, secrets don't stay buried, they explode. Before we continue, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more stories like this. The morning sun slipped over the bustling city of Lagos, painting the streets with heat and noise. The sound of buses honking, traders shouting prices, and children rushing to school filled the air. Amidst the chaos stood a small fabric shop tucked between a bakery and a barber shop. Its wooden sign read Sarah's Fine Textiles. Inside the shop, Sarah Miller folded colorful fabrics with practiced care. Her hands moved quickly, but her mind was restless. She wore a simple blue dress, her hair tied in a neat bun. To her customers, she was just another hard-working shop owner, someone they trusted for fair prices and warm smiles. "Madam Sarah, this lace, how much?" a woman asked, lifting a roll of bright yellow fabric. 8,000 naira, Sarah replied gently. "Ah, reduce it for me now. You know me." Sarah smiled, shaking her head softly. 7,500. That's the last price. The woman laughed, handed over the money, and left satisfied. Sarah carried on with her work, but behind the calm exterior, her life was anything but ordinary. When dusk fell and the streets grew quieter, Sarah locked up the shop. She walked briskly through the back alleys, where fewer eyes would notice her. A sleek black car waited for her at the corner, windows tinted. The driver, dressed in a sharp suit, stepped out and opened the door. "Good evening, madam," he said with a slight bow. Sarah glanced around quickly, making sure no one saw, before sliding into the car. Inside, the leather seats smelled of wealth and power. She leaned back and exhaled. "Let's go." The car drove through the city until it reached a tall, glassy skyscraper, the kind of building only billionaires could afford to own. The guards at the gate saluted as the car passed. The elevator whisked Sarah to the top floor. When the doors opened, she stepped into a lavish penthouse. Gold accents, marble floors, and walls filled with art worth more than her entire shop. And there he was, Nelson Ashford. Tall, commanding, dressed in a crisp suit, Nelson exuded the kind of power that made people bow without him saying a word. His dark eyes softened only when they found Sarah. "You're late," Nelson said, though his tone was playful. Sarah dropped her bag, her lips curving into a small smile. "My customers don't know their Madam Sarah disappears into the night. I had to keep the act." He walked to her, pulling her into his arms. "You're not acting when you're with me. You're my wife. My only wife." Sarah's heart fluttered at his words, but deep inside, a familiar worry lingered. "Your only wife, yet the world must never know," she whispered. Nelson cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Sarah, you know why. My business, my reputation, my image, all of it depends on keeping our marriage quiet. If the world knew, enemies would use you to destroy me. This is for your safety too." Sarah nodded, but silence filled her heart. She glanced down at the gold band on her finger. A secret symbol, hidden under her sleeve most of the time. Inside the band was engraved, "Forever in silence." That night, as they dined at a long glass table filled with dishes prepared by private chefs, Sarah tried to enjoy his company. Nelson told her about his meetings, his empire, his deals. He spoke with the confidence of a man who owned the city. But whenever Sarah looked at him, she wondered, am I truly his forever, or just a piece hidden in the shadows of his empire? Before they went to bed, Nelson kissed her forehead. "No matter what the world sees, Sarah, remember this, you are my truth. And my truth must be hidden." Sarah forced a smile, but as she lay awake that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that secrets, no matter how carefully kept, had a way of crawling into the light. The next morning, Sarah returned to her shop as usual. The market buzzed with energy, women balancing baskets on their heads, men calling out for transport fares, radios blasting the latest pop songs. To everyone else, she was simply Madame Sarah, the shop owner. She was arranging fabrics when a group of young women rushed past her shop, their voices high with excitement. "Have you seen it?" one shouted. "It's everywhere online," another replied, waving her phone. Sarah paid no attention at first, but then her own phone buzzed. A WhatsApp notification from a friend popped up. "Have you seen the news? Your Nelson is engaged to Chloe Brooks. Lagos is on fire with this gist." Sarah's hand froze on the fabric she was folding. Her eyes widened as she clicked the link. The headline blared across her screen. Billionaire Nelson Ashford announces engagement to heiress Chloe Brooks. Her chest tightened. The photo showed Nelson in a perfectly tailored suit, smiling beside a beautiful woman in a shimmering gown. Chloe Brooks, the daughter of a powerful family, known for her elegance and wealth. The shop felt suddenly too small, the air heavy. Sarah dropped the phone and pressed her palm against her stomach, fighting the urge to vomit. A customer walked in, cheerful and unaware. "Madam Sarah, good morning." Sarah forced a smile, her voice trembling. "Good morning, please give me a moment." She excused herself quickly, stepping outside into the alley. Her heart pounded as she dialed Nelson's number. He picked up almost immediately. "Sarah." His voice was calm, too calm. "What is this, Nelson?" she demanded, her voice breaking. "What is this news? You're engaged to Chloe Brooks." There was silence for a moment, then he sighed. "Sarah, listen to me. It's not what you think. Not what I think." Her voice shook with pain. "The whole world is calling her your fiancée. They have pictures of you two smiling like lovers. What am I then, Nelson? What am I to you?" "You are my wife," Nelson said firmly. "My only wife. Chloe is, she's business." "Business?" Sarah repeated, stunned. "Marriage is not business, Nelson. You can't just—" "It's a strategy," he interrupted, his voice low, persuasive. "This engagement is necessary for me to win the new government contract. Chloe's family has influence. Without her, I lose billions. But it's all a show, Sarah. At the end of the day, it's you I come home to." Sarah's hand trembled as she held the phone. His words were smooth, practiced. The same words that always made her give in. "Do you hear yourself, Nelson?" she whispered. "You want me to sit here quietly, watching you announce love to another woman, while I hide like a shadow. Do you know what that does to me?" "Sarah," his voice softened now, almost pleading. "You're the one I love. Chloe means nothing. It's only for business. Just trust me a little longer." Tears blurred Sarah's vision. She wanted to scream, to throw her phone, to walk away. But a part of her, the part still chained to his promises and the nights he held her, couldn't let go. "Do you swear?" she asked softly. "I swear," Nelson said without hesitation. "You're my real wife. Forever. Don't forget that." The line went dead. Sarah stood in the alley, phone clutched to her chest, tears rolling down her face. She returned to her shop later, her eyes red, her voice quiet. Customers came and went, unaware of the storm inside her. As night fell, Sarah lay in bed, scrolling through the endless photos of Nelson and Chloe splashed across social media. The comments were full of admiration. "Power couple. Perfect match. Chloe is so lucky." Her chest ached with every word. She whispered into the darkness, "Lucky? If only they knew." But deep in her heart, Sarah felt the first spark of something dangerous, doubt. The streets of Lagos moved with their usual restless energy, buses screeching, traders shouting, people rushing, but for Sarah Miller, the city felt different. Ever since Nelson's engagement to Chloe Brooks had become headline news, Sarah lived in a constant storm inside her heart. Days passed, yet the ache in her chest only grew. She would sit inside her fabric shop, watching women laugh with their husbands or friends, wondering if they too carried hidden secrets. That morning, David Brooks, her childhood friend and the only person she trusted, walked into the shop. David had always been her anchor, the boy who once carried her books home from school, the man who always reminded her of her worth. Sarah. David's voice was calm, but his eyes studied her carefully. I saw the news. Sarah froze, her hands gripping a roll of fabric. She forced a small smile. Everyone saw it. Lagos won't stop talking. David frowned. Tell me the truth. You're involved with Nelson Ashford, aren't you? Sarah's heart skipped. She had never told David about her marriage to Nelson. But the way David looked at her now, it was as if he could see through her silence. David, it's complicated, she said finally. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. Complicated, or dangerous? Sarah shook her head. It's not what you think. David's eyes hardened. Sarah, I've known you all my life. You've been different ever since you started disappearing at night. And now this, the whole country celebrates his engagement while you sit here, hiding. Do you know what that does to you? Her voice cracked. You don't understand. He loves me. He told me Chloe is only business. David laughed bitterly. Business? Sarah, wake up. Men like Nelson don't mix love and business. If he truly loved you, the whole world would know you're his wife. He wouldn't keep you as some secret in the shadows. Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she whispered stubbornly, he's protecting me. David wanted to argue, but instead he sighed. You're blind, Sarah. And one day, this blindness will break you. The words cut deep, but Sarah pushed them aside. She didn't want to believe David. She didn't want to face the possibility that her entire life with Nelson was built on lies. That evening, after closing her shop, Sarah returned to the penthouse. Nelson greeted her with his usual smile, as if nothing was wrong. How was your day, my love? He asked, pouring her a glass of wine. Sarah sat quietly, studying him. Busy. And yours? Endless meetings, he replied. But it's worth it. Once this contract is sealed, everything changes. Everything? She asked softly. Nelson leaned closer, touching her hand. Everything. We'll finally have the power to live freely. Sarah wanted to believe him. She wanted to hold on to his promises. But something in his eyes seemed distant, guarded. Later that night, after Nelson fell asleep, Sarah sat by the window. The city lights glittered below, but her heart was heavy. That was when she noticed it. A folded piece of paper slipped under the penthouse door. Sarah's body stiffened. She rose quickly, heart racing, and picked it up. The handwriting was messy, almost rushed. You're not the only one. Her hands trembled. She read it again, whispering the words. Not the only one? Fear and suspicion coiled inside her chest. She looked at Nelson sleeping peacefully, unaware. A storm was brewing, and Sarah was caught in the middle. The next day, Sarah couldn't concentrate in her shop. The mysterious note haunted her. Who wrote it? What did it mean? By afternoon, her answer arrived. A woman walked in. She was striking, tall, elegant, with sharp eyes that seemed to cut through the air. She wore a red dress that clung to her curves, and her lips curled into a knowing smile. Sarah Miller, the woman asked. Sarah's chest tightened. Yes. Can I help you? The woman stepped closer. My name is Grace Adams, and I believe we have something in common. Sarah frowned. I don't understand. Grace's smile widened. Oh, you do. We're both married to Nelson Ashford. The words crashed into Sarah like thunder. She stumbled back, gripping the counter for balance. What did you say? Grace calmly reached into her bag and pulled out a photo. It showed her standing beside Nelson, both wearing wedding bands. Sarah's mouth went dry. No, no, that's not possible. Grace tilted her head. It's very possible. He promised me forever, just as he promised you, I'm sure. Sarah's knees weakened. She whispered, "You're lying." Grace laughed softly, though there was no humor in it. "I thought you'd say that. But let me show you something." She tapped her phone and played a video. Nelson's voice filled the shop. "You're my everything, Grace. No one else compares to you." Sarah's body trembled. The world around her blurred. Her hands shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. "You see," Grace said softly, almost pitying. "You thought you were his only secret. But Nelson collects women the way he collects wealth. Hidden, controlled, silenced." Sarah's chest rose and fell rapidly. Tears burned her eyes. "Why are you telling me this?" Grace's smile faded. "Because I'm tired of being silent. And I thought maybe you are too." Sarah's voice cracked. "You don't understand. He loves me. He told me Chloe Brooks is just business." Grace's eyes narrowed. "He told me the same thing." Silence. Heavy, suffocating silence. Sarah's world collapsed around her. The man she believed was her only truth, her secret husband, was also someone else's. Grace stepped closer, lowering her voice. "I don't know what you plan to do, Sarah. But I know one thing. Men like Nelson don't change. And if you don't protect yourself, he will destroy you." Sarah's lips trembled, but no words came. Grace placed the photo on the counter, then turned to leave. At the door, she glanced back and said one last thing. "Sooner or later, you'll see I'm right. And when you do, you'll have to decide, silence or war." The bell on the shop door rang as she walked out. Sarah stood frozen, staring at the photo on the counter. Her heart pounded, her body shaking. Her mind screamed denial, but deep inside, a seed of truth had been planted. That night, when Sarah returned to Nelson's penthouse, she watched him carefully. He welcomed her with open arms, kissed her cheek, and spoke of business deals as if nothing was wrong. But Sarah's heart no longer beat with blind devotion. Every smile he gave, every word he spoke, now carried a shadow of doubt. And as she lay beside him in bed, staring at the ceiling, Grace's words echoed in her mind. "We're both married to Nelson Ashford." Her whole world had changed, and there was no going back. Sarah paced the small space of her fabric shop long after she had closed for the evening. The city outside was buzzing, but inside, she was drowning in silence. The photo Grace had left on her counter still burned in her memory. Nelson with another woman, their rings glinting under the sun. The video of him whispering the same promises he once gave her played in her mind again and again. Her chest rose and fell with anger, confusion, and heartbreak. She couldn't carry it anymore. Tonight, she would confront him. Later, Sarah stood in the grand penthouse, her arms folded tightly across her chest. Nelson walked in, loosening his tie, a calm smile on his face. "My love," he said warmly, crossing the room to kiss her cheek. Sarah stepped back. "Don't." Nelson froze. His brow furrowed. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" Her voice trembled with fury. "You told me I was your only wife. You told me Chloe was just for business. But today, Grace Adams came to me. She claims she's also your wife." For a moment, Nelson's face betrayed nothing. Then he chuckled lightly, shaking his head. "Grace? That woman again? Sarah, she's lying. She's always been obsessed with me. She'll do anything to ruin what we have." "She showed me proof," Sarah snapped. Her hands shook, but her eyes held his. "Photos. Videos. Nelson, she has everything." Nelson's jaw tightened. He walked closer, towering over her. "Listen to me carefully. Grace Adams is nothing but a liar. She's been trying to blackmail me for years. Do you think I'd marry her when I have you? Sarah's voice cracked. But she has a video. You were telling her the same words you tell me. You're my everything. He grabbed her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. Sarah, she manipulated that. Don't you see? She wants you to doubt me, because she knows you're my weakness. She wants to tear us apart. Tears rolled down Sarah's cheeks. Why should I believe you, Nelson? Why should I trust anything you say anymore? For the first time, Nelson's expression softened. He cupped her face, his thumbs brushing her tears. Because you know me. You know my heart. Did I not swear to you that you are my only wife? Did I not tell you Chloe means nothing? Sarah, you are the only woman I truly love. Don't let Grace poison you. Sarah wanted to scream at him, but his voice, his touch, his presence, they weakened her resolve. Still, doubt lingered like poison in her veins. Then explain this, she whispered. Why do you keep me hidden? Why does the world only see Chloe? Why do I have to live like a shadow while you parade her in public? Nelson's eyes darkened. His grip on her arms tightened slightly. Because the world is cruel, Sarah. If they knew about you, you'd be destroyed. My enemies would tear you apart. Keeping you hidden is how I protect you. You should be grateful. Her heart twisted at the word grateful. She pulled back, her voice rising. Grateful? I'm supposed to be grateful for being invisible while you kiss another woman in front of the world. For the first time, anger flashed in Nelson's eyes. Don't raise your voice at me. You know what's at stake. Sarah stepped back, trembling. Maybe Grace is right. Maybe you collect women like trophies and hide them when they're inconvenient. Nelson's jaw clenched. He stepped forward slowly, his voice low, almost dangerous. Careful, Sarah. Don't let your emotions blind you. I gave you my name, my love, my promise. Don't throw it away over lies. Tears blurred Sarah's vision. Her heart screamed for answers, but his words wrapped around her like chains. At last, she whispered, I don't know what to believe anymore. Nelson's voice softened again, switching from anger to charm like a master player. He kissed her forehead. Believe me, Sarah. That's all I ask. But that night, as Sarah lay awake beside him, she clutched the photo Grace had left behind, hidden in her bag. Her heart ached with confusion. She wanted to believe Nelson. But deep inside, she feared the truth was far darker than she could handle. The whispers began days later. First in the markets, then in the online blogs. Rumors that Nelson Ashford, Lagos's golden billionaire, had a hidden life. The tabloids wrote half-truths, blurry photos, and unconfirmed reports. But the whispers were enough to cause cracks in his empire. Sarah heard them too. Customers in her shop giggled over the gossip. They say Nelson Ashford has a secret woman. Imagine, one customer whispered. Sarah's hands trembled as she folded fabric, pretending not to listen. That evening, when she returned to the penthouse, Nelson was pacing the living room, his phone in hand. His expression was sharp, his movements tense. When he saw Sarah, he tossed his phone onto the sofa. It's starting. Sarah frowned. What's starting? The lies, Nelson snapped. Rumors about me. About us. Sarah froze. About us? Yes, he said, running a hand through his hair. Someone is leaking information. The press is sniffing around. If this gets out, everything I've built will collapse. Her heart pounded. But why would that destroy everything? You're my husband, Nelson. Isn't that the truth? Nelson turned sharply, his eyes cold. The truth doesn't matter in my world. Perception does. If they find out about you, they'll tear my reputation apart. I'll lose contracts, allies, power. And you, he paused, stepping closer, his voice dropping. You'll lose everything too. Sarah's chest tightened. What do you mean? He grabbed her wrist, his eyes burning into hers. If you expose me, Sarah, you won't just destroy me. You'll destroy yourself. Do you understand? You'll go down with me. Her breath caught. His grip was firm, almost painful. Nelson, I would never. He released her suddenly, pacing again. Good. Because you don't want to know what happens when people cross me. Silence fell, thick and suffocating. Sarah's heart raced with fear. This was not the loving man who whispered promises in the dark. This was a man showing her the edge of his power. She sat on the sofa, her hands trembling. Nelson, I don't want to lose you. I don't want to be your enemy. But don't you see? Keeping me hidden, it's killing me inside. For a moment, Nelson softened again. He sat beside her, pulling her into his arms. Sarah, listen to me. Everything I'm doing for us. Once this storm passes, we'll be stronger than ever. You just have to trust me. Stay silent, stay with me, and I'll protect you. Sarah buried her face in his chest, torn between fear and love. But later, when she returned to her shop, David appeared again. He had been watching her carefully these past weeks. You look worse every time I see you, David said quietly. Sarah tried to smile. I'm fine. No, you're not. He leaned against the counter, his eyes steady. You're trapped, Sarah. Can't you see? Nelson will never choose you. He'll always choose his empire, his money, his power. You're nothing but his secret. Sarah's throat tightened. Don't say that. It's the truth, David said firmly. If you don't protect yourself, Sarah, he will destroy you. And when that happens, I won't be able to save you. Her eyes filled with tears. What do you want me to do, David? Leave him? Expose him? You don't understand. I still love him. I don't know how to stop. David's voice softened, but his words were heavy. Love won't save you, Sarah. It will break you. Sarah turned away, her heart in pieces. Back at the penthouse that night, she stood by the window, staring at the glittering city. Nelson came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Everything will be fine, he whispered. But Sarah's eyes burned with unshed tears. For the first time, she wasn't sure if she believed him anymore. Sarah had not slept in days. Every night, she lay awake listening to the steady rhythm of Nelson's breathing beside her while her mind replayed Grace's warning, David's voice of reason, and Nelson's threats. Her body ached with exhaustion, but her heart was heavier. By day, she kept up her mask at the shop, smiling at customers, folding fabrics, and pretending to be the cheerful Madame Sarah. By night, she returned to the penthouse, where she played the role of Nelson's quiet, obedient wife. But inside, she was breaking. One evening, Sarah sat at the edge of the bed, staring at the small gold wedding band on her finger. The engraving, forever in silence, now felt like a curse instead of a vow. Nelson walked out of the bathroom, drying his hands. Why do you look so serious? He asked casually. Sarah looked up at him, her eyes filled with torment. Nelson, I can't live like this anymore. He frowned. Like what? Like your shadow, she whispered. Like a secret you keep locked away. Everyone sees you smiling with Chloe. Everyone believes she's the woman you love. And me. I'm invisible. Nelson's jaw tightened. He walked closer, kneeling in front of her. Sarah, you are not invisible to me. You are my wife. Chloe is just a piece on the chessboard. She has power I need. Without her, I lose everything. But without you, he touched her cheek, his eyes softening. Without you, I lose myself. Her chest rose and fell with a painful breath. Then why does it feel like you've already lost me? For the first time, Nelson's face flickered with something unreadable. Doubt, maybe even fear. He pulled her hand into his. Don't say that. I can't lose you, Sarah. Not now. She looked at him, tears threatening to fall. Then give me a reason to stay. Nelson said nothing. His silence was louder than words. The next day, Sarah received another message slipped under her shop door. No name, no handwriting she recognized. Just 6 words. Join her or you'll die alone. Her hands shook as she read it. She knew instantly who her meant, Grace Adams. That evening, Sarah agreed to meet Grace in a quiet cafe far from the city center. Grace arrived in her usual confident style, red lips, and sharp heels clicking against the tiled floor. You came, Grace said, sliding into the booth opposite her. I had to, Sarah replied quietly. The note, it was you. Grace smirked. Not me. But someone who wants you to see the truth. Nelson isn't who you think he is, Sarah. He's not just lying to us. He's dangerous. Sarah's chest tightened. Dangerous how? Grace leaned closer, lowering her voice. You think he keeps us hidden because of enemies? No. He keeps us hidden because if the world knew how many women he's trapped, his empire would crumble. Chloe is his public queen, but you and we're disposable pawns. When we become inconvenient, he'll erase us. Sarah shook her head. No, he loves me. Grace's laugh was cold. That's what he told me too. That's what he tells every woman he uses. Do you know what happened to the last one? She disappeared. Just like that. No trace. Sarah's hands went cold. You're lying. Grace's eyes hardened. I wish I was. But ask yourself, why do you think he keeps threatening you? Why do you think he warns you about enemies? The real enemy is Nelson himself. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. So what do you want me to do? Grace's expression softened slightly. Stand with me. Together, we can expose him. Alone, he'll crush us. But if both of us speak, he won't be able to silence the truth. Sarah swallowed hard. The choice was heavy. Stay silent and live as Nelson's invisible wife, or risk everything by standing with Grace. Her mind was torn in 2 directions, loyalty to Nelson and loyalty to herself. David's words came back to her. Love won't save you, Sarah. It will break you. Grace reached across the table, her hand brushing Sarah's. So, what will it be? Silence or war? Sarah lowered her eyes, her voice barely a whisper. I don't know. That night, back at the penthouse, Nelson wrapped his arms around her as if nothing was wrong. Everything will be fine, he whispered. But Sarah's eyes stayed open in the dark, staring at the ceiling. And in her heart, she knew she could no longer avoid the choice forever. The invitation arrived in golden envelopes embossed with Nelson's crest. You are cordially invited to celebrate the engagement of Nelson Ashford and Chloe Brooks. The newspapers called it the party of the year. Politicians, celebrities, and tycoons from across Nigeria would attend. Photos of Chloe in her diamond-studded gown appeared in glossy magazines. Nelson, as always, looked like the perfect fiancé. Sarah's hands trembled as she held the invitation. It hadn't come to her, of course. She had found it on Nelson's desk while he showered. Her stomach twisted with rage. The world would celebrate Chloe as Nelson's queen, while she, his real wife, sat alone in the shadows. That evening, David appeared at her shop again. He noticed her pale face instantly. What's wrong now? He asked gently. Sarah handed him the invitation. He's throwing a party. A grand one. To celebrate Chloe. David's lips tightened as he read it. And you? Where does that leave you? Her voice broke. Nowhere. Invisible. I can't take it anymore, David. I can't. David placed a hand over hers. Then do something about it. Don't sit here suffering while he plays with your life. If you want the world to know the truth, you have to make them see. Sarah looked at him with wide, fearful eyes. You mean go to the party? Yes, David said firmly. Go. Stand before them all. Show them who you are. Her breath caught. The thought terrified her, but a spark lit in her chest. Maybe David was right. Maybe silence was no longer survival. The night of the party arrived. The grand ballroom glittered with chandeliers, golden drapes, and walls covered in roses. Security guards lined the entrance, but the air inside was filled with music, laughter, and the clinking of champagne glasses. Chloe Brooks stood like a queen at Nelson's side, dazzling in her gown. Guests showered her with compliments, calling her the future Mrs. Ashford. And in the shadows of the hall, Sarah slipped in unnoticed. She wore a simple black dress, her hair tied back. Her heart pounded so loudly she thought it might give her away. She watched as Nelson took the stage, holding Chloe's hand. His voice echoed through the speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we celebrate love, loyalty, and the promise of a future built on trust. The words pierced Sarah like knives. Love, loyalty, trust. Words he once whispered only to her. Her hands shook. Tears filled her eyes. She couldn't breathe. And then, she stood. Her chair scraped against the marble floor, drawing stares. Heads turned. Whispers rippled through the room. Sarah's voice trembled, but it carried across the hall. Nelson Ashford, tell them about me. The room fell silent. Nelson's face drained of color. His eyes widened in shock. Sarah, he hissed under his breath, though his microphone picked it up faintly. What are you doing here? Gasps filled the hall. Guests looked from Chloe to Sarah, confusion spreading like wildfire. Sarah's chest heaved. Tell them the truth. Tell them who I am. Nelson's mask slipped for a brief second. Panic flickered in his eyes. Then, quickly, he regained composure, forcing a smile. My apologies, everyone, he said smoothly. This woman, she's confused. She's nothing to me. The words hit Sarah like a slap. But before she could respond, another voice rang out. Nothing to you? Then what am I? All heads turned. Grace Adams stepped forward from the crowd. Her red dress caught the light, her eyes blazing. The room erupted in whispers. Two women, both claiming ties to Nelson Ashford. Grace raised her voice. Tell them, Nelson. Tell them how you made me your secret wife, just like you did her. Tell them how you promised us both forever while you paraded Chloe for the cameras. Gasps. Cameras flashed. The hall buzzed with chaos. Chloe's face turned pale as she stared at Nelson. What is she talking about? She demanded. Nelson's charm faltered. He raised his hands. Lies. These are lies. Bitter women trying to ruin me. Sarah's knees trembled. She looked at Grace, who nodded at her, urging her to speak. Her lips parted, but then her eyes locked with Nelson's. And in that moment, fear paralyzed her. Her heart screamed to expose him, but her voice refused. Instead, she whispered, he's telling the truth. I don't know this woman. The crowd gasped again. Grace's eyes widened in shock. What? Nelson smiled quickly, wrapping an arm around Chloe. You see? Just a delusional guest trying to ruin our evening. Please, let us continue. Guards moved to drag Grace out, her voice echoing furiously. Sarah, you coward. He will destroy you too. The party resumed in shaky laughter and forced applause. But Sarah sat back down, her hands shaking, her face pale. She had chosen silence. And in that silence, something inside her broke. The ballroom had not yet recovered from the shock of Grace Adams being dragged out screaming. Whispers floated across tables, voices sharp and curious. Guests tilted their heads together like vultures circling a fresh wound. Nelson Ashford, master of appearances, smiled with the same calm grace he used to silence business rivals. His arm tightened around Chloe Brooks, as though shielding her from the madness. But inside, Nelson burned. His eyes darted towards Sarah, who sat silently, her hands clenched in her lap. He whispered under his breath as he passed her table, "You'll pay for this later." Sarah's chest tightened. She wanted to believe her choice had bought her safety, that denying Grace meant Nelson would spare her anger. But the venom in his eyes told her otherwise. On stage, Nelson tapped the microphone again. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, voice smooth as glass, "sometimes jealousy creates illusions. Tonight is not about lies or slander. Tonight is about love." Polite applause followed. Chloe smiled, though her lips trembled slightly. She clung to his hand as though it were her anchor, but doubt clouded her gaze. Nelson kissed her hand, his smile unwavering. "Let us continue with our celebration." From the shadows, Sarah forced herself to stay still. Her heart pounded in her ears. She replayed Grace's last words in her head, "He will destroy you too." And then, to Sarah's shock, Grace's voice echoed again, not in her memory, but through the speakers. The ballroom froze. A projector at the back wall suddenly came alive, flickering with light. Someone had hacked into the feed. On the screen, a grainy video began to play. It was Nelson, sitting at a table, laughing. And across from him, Grace. His voice was clear. "You'll always be my secret, Grace. No one will ever know about you, or Sarah. They're pawns, nothing more. Chloe is the only one that matters." Gasps filled the room. Chloe's hand dropped from Nelson's arm. "Nelson," she whispered, her voice shaking. Nelson's mask cracked. "This is a lie. A fake. Someone tampered with this." But the video continued. Nelson's face, Nelson's voice. "Sarah is weak. She'll never expose me. And if she ever tries, she'll regret it." Every guest's eyes swung toward Sarah. Her face went white. Nelson slammed a fist on the podium. "Turn it off. Now." But the video ended only after one final damning line from Nelson. "By the time I'm done, they'll both disappear." The room erupted into chaos. Reporters pulled out phones, snapping pictures, recording videos. Politicians whispered to each other, suddenly calculating whether associating with Nelson was worth the risk. Chloe stepped back from Nelson, her face pale. "You lied to me," she said, voice trembling with hurt. Nelson reached for her hand, but she pulled away. "Chloe!" "Don't touch me," she snapped, tears brimming. "You humiliated me. In front of everyone." The crowd thickened, pressing closer, voices sharp, questions flying. "Mr. Ashford, is this true? Who is Sarah? Who is Grace Adams? Are you secretly married?" Security scrambled to contain the frenzy, but the damage had been done. Nelson's empire of perfection had cracked wide open. Amid the storm, Sarah stood up. Her legs shook, but for once, she wasn't just a shadow. Reporters shoved microphones toward her. "Madam, are you Sarah Miller? Are you his wife?" Her throat dried. For a moment, silence held her hostage. Then Nelson's cold gaze stabbed into her. A warning. And Sarah broke again. She forced a weak smile and said, "No. I'm no one. I don't know him." The room buzzed louder, divided between disbelief and confusion. Nelson smirked, relief softening his shoulders. He leaned into the microphone. "Exactly. Just another face in the crowd. Now, please, let's return to our evening." But the whispers did not die. The cracks were already spreading. Later that night, after the last guest had fled and Chloe locked herself in a separate suite, Nelson dragged Sarah into his study. He shoved the door shut, his face twisted with rage. "What were you thinking?" Sarah's voice shook. I protected you. Protected me." He laughed bitterly. "You should never have come. Do you realize what you almost cost me? That video, that stunt, you should have stood up and denied it with fire, with conviction. Instead, you looked guilty." Tears welled in her eyes. Nelson, how many lies do you expect me to cover? How many times do you expect me to erase myself for you? He stepped closer, his presence suffocating. As many times as it takes. You are mine, Sarah. Mine. And if you betray me... She flinched as his hand brushed her cheek, cold and threatening. You'll disappear, just like Grace will. Her breath caught. What do you mean, Grace will? His eyes hardened. She should have known better than to cross me. A chill sank into Sarah's bones. She realized Grace was already marked for destruction. And maybe she was next. That night, Sarah cried silently into her pillow. Her tears weren't only for herself, but for the woman who had tried to save her. For the first time, Sarah felt something stronger than fear. Anger. And deep beneath it, a quiet hunger for revenge. Weeks passed. The scandal of the video stormed through headlines, but Nelson fought back with the full weight of his money and influence. The footage was declared fake by experts he paid. Grace Adams vanished from the city. No one knew where. Chloe Brooks withdrew from the spotlight, but her family still pushed for the wedding. On the surface, Nelson had regained control. His empire stood. His smile returned. But Sarah knew the truth. And she was no longer the same. Every night, Nelson came home to the same woman who smiled weakly, served him dinner, and listened silently. But what he didn't know was that Sarah was no longer afraid. While Nelson played at being untouchable, Sarah began to weave her own quiet web. She met with David in secret. I can't do this anymore, she told him one evening at a small roadside cafe. Her voice was calm, almost eerily so. He will never choose me. He will never love me. But he will fall. David studied her face. The timid Sarah he once knew had vanished. Her eyes burned with quiet determination. You're serious, he said. She nodded. I need your help. David hesitated. Sarah, this is dangerous. Nelson doesn't forgive betrayal. Sarah smiled faintly. Neither do I. Over the next few months, Sarah gathered what Nelson had always feared most, evidence. Through David's connections, she traced bank accounts, shell companies, backdoor deals Nelson thought were invisible. She copied files from his office when he slept, her hands trembling at first, but steadier each time. She met rivals of Nelson's empire, men and women who despised him but lacked the leverage to fight him. Now, with Sarah feeding them secrets, they began to sharpen their knives. Nelson noticed changes. You've been quiet lately, he remarked one night, sipping whiskey in his study. Sarah only smiled. I'm learning silence from you. He chuckled, not realizing her words were laced with venom. Chloe eventually confronted Sarah in private. It was at a charity gala, months after the scandal had died. She cornered Sarah in the bathroom, her diamond earrings catching the light. You're the one, aren't you? Chloe said coldly. The woman from the video. The one he hides. Sarah met her gaze, calm. What if I am? Chloe's lips curled. Then you're pathetic. Clinging to scraps while I take the crown. Sarah leaned closer, her voice a whisper. The crown isn't as heavy as the sword above your head. Chloe froze, confusion flickering in her eyes. But Sarah walked out, leaving her unsettled. One rainy night, Sarah stood in their penthouse bedroom, staring at her wedding ring. She slid it off slowly, her hands steady. She placed it in a drawer, whispering softly, "Forever in silence is over." Her reflection in the mirror showed not a victim, but a woman reborn. Months later, Nelson Ashford still smiled on magazine covers, shaking hands with presidents, announcing billion-dollar projects. But beneath the surface, cracks spread faster than he could patch them. Competitors leaked documents. Banks quietly withdrew. Allies turned into enemies. Nelson's empire was rotting from the inside. And Sarah was the rot. She never raised her voice, never revealed her hand. She smiled in public, obeyed at home, and moved unseen in the shadows. Her silence had become her weapon. One night, as Nelson poured himself another glass of whiskey, he muttered, "Strange how quickly friends become enemies." Sarah, sitting quietly by the window, only smiled faintly and said, "Yes. Strange." He never saw the cold fire in her eyes. Sarah Miller, once the invisible wife, had become something far more dangerous. The silent power behind his fall. And though the world still cheered Nelson Ashford, the game had only just begun. And that was just the beginning of Sarah's story. What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you like this? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next twist in this unbelievable story.